Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome back to another Northside Baseball video. As the Brewers and Cubs battle rages on, we'd like to report on something a little bit different this time around. It's, of course, Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is not injured, thank goodness, but he's taken some time on the bench. And with that, a prospect comes up to not make his MLB debut per se, but to make a MLB roundabout, we'll call it. Owen Caissie, who we've talked about in the past, is making his way onto the Cubs bench, and we're excited about it. So, Brandon, let's get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so obviously Casey was called up last week. We spoke about his call up, about the sort of anticipation for him. The Cubs didn't trade him at the trade deadline. Now, because Kyle Tucker is finally sitting out a few games, again, not that I'm excited that Kyle Tucker's sitting out a few games, but he's been struggling really, really badly for the last couple months. Going into July, he had one of the five best WRC pluses in baseball. Since then, he has one home run. And extra base hits total. It's been a mess. He has a finger injury, a hand injury. He's not healthy. The Cubs haven't let him sit. He obviously doesn't want to go on the injured list, so he's not going on the injured list. He's going to sit out. It sounds like for the rest of the Brewers series, which is not ideal, but at this point, he's grounding out everything to first or second base. So Owen Caissie can't be really worse than what Kyle Tucker's been the last 6 weeks or so. So I'm excited to see Owen Caissie get this little chance. Obviously, we've seen him play a few games already at the time of this recording. But obviously, this is a key series that he's getting thrown into basically a playoff environment here in Wrigley Field against the Brewers as a key component of the lineup. I mean, he's stepping in for the best player on the Cubs. At least when Kyle Tucker's healthy, he's the best player on the Cubs. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. Obviously, everyone and their mother thought Casey was going to get traded at the deadline. Here he is instead. I'm sure the Cubs are pretty glad they didn't trade him now because obviously he's the next best thing, with Tucker sitting out for a few games. So I'll be interested to see how he performs. But the more important thing for the Cubs right now is that Kyle Tucker gets healthy. Even if they lose to the Brewers this week and they have to basically seed the NL Central and they have to give up the division, if the Cubs want a chance in the playoffs, they're gonna need Kyle Tucker to be healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that we've seen this so many times in Cubs past where it's kind of trial by fire going up against really great teams for these prospects. I can think of times where Javier Assad, Ben Brown, Matt Shaw, it didn't really go that well against the Dodgers, but all these prospects, had the call up against really good teams. And it was kind of their huge trial run of are they going to do really well? And it's the same for Owen Caissie. Again, he has really big shoes to fill, like you say, with somebody like Tucker. But the one thing that I'll point out that we talked about in a previous video is he made the top 100 prospect list. Now, this is just the MLB saying, look, he's somebody to keep your eye on, but I think that's still a pretty big, I don't want to call it an award, but a pretty big, award
Yeah.
to give a prospect to start with. So the MLB has their eye on him to start with. And I think getting this call up now saying, look, you're going to replace Tucker in a very crucial time is very exciting for somebody like Owen Caissie.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's worth pointing out, obviously, Casey's gonna play, a bunch of games for as long as Tucker sits out. But obviously the Cubs have other options. Seiya Suzuki could move from designated hitter back to right field, where he played for the first few seasons with the Cubs. Willie Castro is obviously a capable option. It's possible the Cubs, could, make another move on the roster. I doubt it. I think Kevin Alcantara is healthy again. He's obviously on the 40-man roster. He could theoretically come up and play a little bit. I don't expect that to be the case because Tucker's not going on the IL. But yeah, I mean, again, like you said, everyone's had their eye on Casey for years at this point, ever since the Cubs got him in the Yu Darvish trade. He's a really talented prospect. He's a really impressive bat. Again, we know the flaws with him. He strikes out a bunch, which will be exacerbated against MLB pitching. We know that he's prolonged to some slumps. He's definitely a very streaky hitter, which hopefully he's on one of his hot streaks, as right now against the Brewers, because the Cubs need every bit of firepower they can get in the lineup at this point with the way that, everyone seems to be struggling. But again, the key part of this is that yes, obviously this happening during the Brewer series really sucks because this was really the Cubs' last stand in the NL Central. With the way that things have been going the last month, if there was any hope that they were going to win the NL Central this year, it was going to have to come this series. Now, that's not to say they can't win this series. At the time of this recording, only the first game has happened on Monday night. Game two got rained out Monday night. So there's still a chance, that they win the series, maybe make a little bit of a push back. But this is clearly a long-term play. This is clearly, Craig Counsell, Jed Hoyer. They're doing this with the playoffs in mind, saying, get Kyle Tucker right, give him a week, give him however long he needs to get back to being the Kyle Tucker that we saw in the first half of the season, because the Cubs are going to have to go through the wild card at this point. And if they're going to win the wild card series and hopefully the divisional series and the championship series and hopefully the World Series, Kyle Tucker absolutely has to be who he was in the first half.
For now, Owen Caissie is the guy, whether we made the right choice or not. Only time will tell, as I always say. But we'd like to hear your comments in the comments section below. And as always, we'll be responding to every single one.